punished. Time controls.
Scurry! Scurry! Take this! Do what I say!
Caretaker, to me!
Hurry! Oh, same as always. I'm speeding this up! Another enemy. Be
My mana is gone.
renewed! No rest! Gravity. Reconstructing early. I'm speeding this up! A vitality boon! Worth the wait! Hurry! I want to watch another!
Yes, an illusion. I have seen beyond. Everlasting fire. Die. Silent. This is doomed. Everlasting fire.
Alright guys, so this is my Totem Explode Pathfinder. We are using Transcendence and the new Explodey Totems to make a super well-rounded character. It's almost impossible for me to die. I definitely have, as you can see, I don't have an XP bar right now. But for all intents and purposes, the build is pretty much immortal. You have to either stand in a Shaper Beam for too long or walk into a Sirus Storm to die. As long as you have your life flask up, you're gonna be big chillin'. So the way this character works is we are converting all of our physical damage taken to elemental damage. This paired with Transcendence, making our armor apply to elemental damage taken instead of physical, means that we can be extremely tanky against large hits that would normally kill our character. We also pick up Leaf Shade to help with that damage over time mitigation, since that is definitely our Achilles. And we are running Petrified Blood plus Master Surgeon to give us a huge effective max hit, and we're taking large portions of our damage over time instead. If we go into a map, I can show you this pretty simply. We'll just go into a whatever and then stand in front of a bunch of mobs and let them mac on us. Alright, and now you can see the Petrified Blood in action. And if we keep our life flask up, nothing dies. My gloves are actually just killing everything. But get out of here. Just wanted to show that off real quick. For the rest of this, I'm probably just going to go into POE, show you the gear set and the skill tree, So let me pull that up real quick. Alright, so as you can see, we have a pretty big effective hit pool, as well as we are at dot cap. This is against Guardians. If we go to Uber Pinnacle, we've got like 18 mil and a 400k effective hit pool against the Shaper Slam. If you want to see the other ones, you can flick through. But yeah, pretty much nothing can kill the build as long as you have your Molten Shell up, and for the big slams you will need your Val Arctic armor. For the gear, we are running a Red Blade Gladius. This has the Totem Explode. This is kind of like a non-replaceable for the build because we need that 600% base damage, since we are running the shield variant and we don't have any dot scaling on our weapon. We're running a Dawnbreaker. This is going to convert 20% of physical damage taken as fire. That's the important line on the explicits. And then for the implicits, I did double corrupt this to have 7% of physical damage taken as fire and 7% as chaos. Ideally, that chaos would be cold or lightning, but I couldn't be bothered to double corrupt any more of these after doing it 100 times. And then we just went for a Crucible Tree with 3% of physical damage taken as fire. This could be cold or lightning or chaos, but ideally one of the elements. Next we've got our helmet. For the helmet, I have the line on the implicit 8% of physical damage taken as lightning. This can be, again, any of the elements. The important thing is that you are going to need to conflict orb this up from 7% to 8%. If you're trying to min-max your physical damage taken as. And then I bought a fractured 10% physical damage taken as fire on an evasion base, and then hit it with some loathing essences for the mana reservation until I hit an amount of life and evasion that I was okay with. This could definitely be better, but I couldn't really be bothered to spam anymore. Next we have the Lore Weave. This is important that it says your maximum resistances are 78. It does have a roll range of 76 to 78, so make sure you pick one up with the 78%. The +1 socketed gems is definitely very nice for scaling our damage a little bit more, but totally not necessary. Next is the gloves. For the gloves, these are non-replaceable for this variation of the build. We are using Slave Driver's Hands. These give us Frenzy Charge, Endurance Charge, and Power Charge when our traps are triggered, so free charge generation. We also can scale our trap throw speed with cast speed instead, which is very nice because it's a lot easier to get cast speed. I'm not really scaling it too much on this version of the build, but if you were to get it on your ring or on cluster jewels, that would be nice. And then the important line on this is skills which throw traps cost life instead of mana. Since we have a ton of life regen from our flask, and since we're taking such small hits, this is not a detriment at all to the build, and also solves the problem of having to deal with the mana cost. Our totems cost like 100 or something mana per throw, and you're throwing like a lot a second. It's like twice a second, so you're not going to be able to sustain that mana cost at all. So these are non-replaceable. The next part is the boots. These are really basic boots. The only important mods are move speed, suppression. I think I need at least 6% for how I built the build to cap, so anything higher than 6% is fine if you're following exactly what I'm doing. And then life and chaos res. We're overcapped on lightning res, so we don't really need it. But if you want to overcap your resistances a bit, you can find a little bit on every other piece so that you're not 100% reliant on flasks. Next is the ashes. I have a 12% reservation efficiency with 28 quality. Definitely go for quality over the reservation efficiency for this build. it affects our Devouring Totem's life and also the amount of poison chance we get from our Divergent Herald of Agony, so it is important to have a high quality rating. And then I have Sovereignty Anointed on my amulet. On the ring, I got a damage recoup, Fractured Ring, hit it with some strength essences because I needed strength to put on all my gear until I hit a tier of life I was satisfied with, and then crafted non-channeling just for more comfortability with using my Flame Dash and casting my curses. The next ring is the Mings. As you can see, the Mings is a very large portion of our damage, and while it does come at a detriment to our max hit, the amount of damage we're getting from this is so absurd that I couldn't see replacing it. The next part is the belt. The important lines on this are the flasks applied to you have 12% increased effect, and the increased flask charges gained. We want to make sure we have permanent uptime of our flasks, and also that we have as much effect on our flasks as possible, because they are a large portion of our mitigation, and this affects the Taste of Hate conversion. So you definitely want both of those mods. The flask charges gained is also really nice since we are running Flatulence on our other 3 flasks, as well as the Mastery for recover 4% of life when you use a flask. So every time you're getting hit by a ton of enemies, they're going to be filling up your flasks, and when they fill up your flasks, you're going to be healing. It's just another layer of defense on the build that makes it super comfortable for doing things like Simulacrum or difficult maps where you're going to be getting hit a lot in a very short amount of time. Next, for the flasks, Taste of Hate, you want a 15% of physical damage from hits taken as cold damage during effect. The gain extra is nice, but our cold damage doesn't poison, so it's not really that much DPS increase. Next, I'm running a Quicksilver with cast speed. You could replace this with like a Jade, or if we look at a Progenesis, we just plop that in there. Raises our maximum effective hit pool by a decent amount, so definitely a good option. But I like the movement speed, so this is why I'm running a Quicksilver. And then we also run a Topaz Flask and a Ruby Flask, as well as a Saturated Divine Life Flask. I have Sealing on mine just to get Bleed Immunity and Corrupting Blood Immunity. You can get this on the tree or a jewel, but it's not too uncommon to just get this on a flask, especially when you have 100% uptime on said flask. Yeah, so next we'll go over our cluster jewels. I'm running a 3 passive mana reservation efficiency cluster jewel with 35% increased effect. I need this to fit in all of my auras with the amount of reservation efficiency I have on my ashes. If you can balance it better, definitely go for that. You could probably save a point or two or a couple divines on buying this cluster jewel specifically. Next, we are running Quartz Infusion for our Forbidden Flesh and Flame. This saves us some points on the skill tree for the 40% suppression, and also gives us permaphasing, which is just comfy. I want to do some delving with the build, so I wanted to make sure I had permaphasing so I can just run to the next node and not have to worry about getting body blocked or keeping uptime on Withering Step. But you could totally do that instead and just cap your suppression on the tree. These are definitely just a luxury item and not necessary. Next is a Cluster Jewel. Just get an 8 passive Chaos damage Cluster Jewel, hit it with a couple Chaos until you get some nodes that are nice, or you can buy a 3 passive one. I've been lazy, so I haven't upgraded this. Next is the Immutable Force and the Blood Notch. This has been getting a lot of hype recently. It is really strong. you practically get stun immunity, and then you also get a ton of recovery when you get stunned. This plus Petrified Blood and a little bit of recoup can make your character almost hit immune from hits that can't one-shot you. And since we have so much damage mitigation, making it very hard for things to one-shot us, it makes the character extremely strong against lots of small hits and getting overwhelmed. Next is just again another large cluster jewel. We're running 2 of them, so this one's a 3 passive, and yeah. I also have a CB immunity, life, totem life. Nothing else on this really matters. You could definitely get a better regular jewel in this slot, or just pick up 2 passives instead. Next is the Watcher's Eye. This is really important that we get a double mod purity of elements taken as. It doesn't have to be fire and lightning. It could be fire and cold, lightning and cold. But you want to get as much of your physical damage taken as an element, and this is something that'll bring us from the 90% taken to the 99 to 100%. As you can see, if I take this off, my effective hit pool drops by a bunch, so it is super important that we run this. That's pretty much all of the gear on my character. Next we can go into my skill gem setups. So in the helmet I'm running Determination, Purity of Elements, Grace with an Enlighten level 3. In the gloves I've got a Cast When Stunned, Temporal Chains, Despair, as well as a Stone Golem. The Stone Golem really doesn't do that much. I just, thought it was funny. Throw a Golem in, might as well. It's getting cast anytime we get stunned, which is pretty much anytime we get hit. So it's a nice comfy automation for this. And for Pinnacle bosses, I do swap this Cast When Stunned out for an Arcanist brand just to make sure we are getting our curses on the bosses. They're a decent portion of our damage, so it's important that we get them on. For the Devouring Totem, we run Devouring Totem, Cluster Traps, Traps, and Power, Multi-Totem, and Multi-Traps. The nice thing about the Totem Explode is that the Totem Explode is an explosion. It is not a trap skill, so the reductions to the trap damage don't affect our damage on the Devouring Totem. As well as Multi-Totem summoning 2 totems at a time means each trap summons 2 totems instead of 1, essentially doubling our damage for free, and then we throw 5 traps at a time, so we summon 10 totems over each other. The way the explosions work is when you override your maximum amount of totems, your totems will expire and explode when they expire. So trying to throw as many totems as possible per second is how we do a ton of damage. If we go over to the EK, I matched my cast rate to 5 times my in-game throw rate, which gives us our DPS calculation plus the flat damage mod that I have, which is equal to 6 times our totem's life. For the rest of the skills in my boots, I'm running an Anomalous Petrified Blood with Enlighten and Divergent Herald of Agony. The Divergent Herald of Agony is giving us 68% of our poison chance. This is a large portion. With this, plus these 2 nodes on the tree, as well as the Curse Mastery here, we are at 100% poison chance. If you do not want to rely on this Curse Mastery, you could path over to Toxic Strikes to get us that last little bit to be 100%, but I figured save the points. We pretty much kill everything with our hit DPS anyways, so it doesn't really matter if they're cursed unless they're a boss, and if they're a boss, we'll be using Arcanist brand to make sure they're cursed anyways. Cool. And then with that, we also have our Molten Shell Val Arctic Armor. These are our panic buttons. You don't need to Molten Shell most things in the game, but if you want to survive the Uber Maven Brain Blast, you are going to need to press your Val Arctic Armor plus your Molten Shell at the same time. Otherwise, it will one-shot the build. It might be possible to do it with just Val Arctic Armor or just Molten Shell at some point if you were to stack your armor higher or your HP higher, but at this current state, I definitely can't do that. I have tried plenty of times. Next, we've got our movement skills: Shield Charge, Plague Bear, and Flame Dash. I just like Shield Charge to move around the map. You could use Leap Slam if you want, or Frost Blink. It's really up to personal preference. The Plague Bear definitely helps a lot with general map clear and cleaning up trash. You just throw some traps, fill your Plague Bear, pop it, charge around, and enjoy your poison prolifs or whatever. Let's see, for the ascendancy points, we are picking up Master Toxis and Nature's Reprisal and Nature's Adrenaline and Master Surgeon. The poison prolif on this is nice, but also like not really that noticeable. The wither on hits definitely huge. Free wither is something that you definitely don't want to pass up on. You can also use Withering Step too if you want to apply additional withers to bosses off the gate, but the damage is pretty good. Like, I don't really care to make it better, so if you want to min-max it a little bit more, you definitely could do that. Nature's Adrenaline is really nice, gives us a ton of flash charges gained, which helps with our permanent flasks. And then Master Surgeon is extremely overpowered. Being able to be Petrified Blood with a permanent life flask that is always bringing us past our Petrified Blood rate means that we can take significantly bigger hits than previously possible with this tech. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard plenty of rage about this, so it's kind of a no-brainer that we're going for this. Another option, instead of going for the Quartz Infusion Flesh and Flame, would be going for Nature's Boon. This does give us a decent amount of effective hit pool, since we do run 3 magic flasks, and if we were running like a granite or something instead of our Quicksilver, we would have even higher armor. I think I pushed this to like around 100k with a granite flask, but it's really not necessary to have much more than 50 for most of the game. Let's see if there's anything else to note here. We are running Iron Reflexes to convert our evasion rating to armor. Since we're using Grace and Determination together, this just buffs our armor number by a decent amount. I'm using Mage Bane to cap suppression, as well as we are picking up Transcendence here off of our Militant Faith. The only really important node on this is the 1% increase effect of non-curse auras, and then also making sure that whichever Militant Faith you pick doesn't brick these 2 points. There might be better ones for the build, but this one does just fine. I picked it up for like 30 chaos or something. It was as long as it doesn't brick any of the important nodes, you're big chillin' on that. Another important note for our stun tech that we're running is to pick up this Energy Shield Mastery. Stun threshold is based off 60% of your energy shield instead of life. Since we have 300 energy shield, this means that pretty much every hit is going to stun us. You want to make sure too, since we are running this, that in the game, the Pantheon Soul of the Brine King, you cannot be stunned if you have been stunned or blocking a stunning hit in the past 2 seconds. You want to make sure you do not have this. If you have this, you will brick the interaction 100%. So if you are wondering why your Blood Notch and Immutable Force interaction is feeling bad, you probably have Soul of the Brine King. A lot of characters use this for freeze avoidance. We run Purity of Elements, so we are freeze immune anyways. We don't need that. And instead I'm picking up this Soul of Lunaris. Should probably upgrade this to get the additional elemental damage taken if you have been hit recently. But it doesn't really matter too much. For the Minor Pantheon, I'm using Soul of Slotha. This is really nice if you are low life and you press your life flask. You get a ton of extra recovery from the life flask. But if you are doing something with like red altars, you probably want to pick up Burning Ground immunity. We don't have much dot resistance, so picking this up will feel a lot nicer. I think that's pretty much it for the character though. So if you have any questions or if you think I missed anything, let me know. I'd be happy to help. And if you try the build out, enjoy it, give this video a like, and yeah, you can subscribe if you want. I'll probably be posting some more showcases and updates on the build as I make iterations to it. So yeah, peace.